Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Please subscribe if you wish to see more videos on movie novelizations. Today I have Terminator by Randall Frakes and Bill Wisher, based on a screenplay by James Cameron and Gail Ann Hurd. The film was, as you know, an immediate success, essentially a B movie that turned A overnight, or at least an A movie with a B movie budget. Launching the careers of James Cameron and producer Gail Ann Hurd, as well as bringing together an early roles for Cameron's acting favourites, Michael Biehn and Bill Paxton and Lance Henriksen. Another favourite, one of my favourite movies, and I sometimes wish it had kind of remained as a standalone movie. However, it has spawned numerous sequels of varying quality. To be fair, I'm not really a huge fan of Terminator 2. I found the T-1000 erred close to science fantasy rather than fiction. And whilst the CGI was groundbreaking at the time, it was also quite obvious, taking me out of the movie too much. But back to the novelization. It does not give much in terms of extra sort of scenes or unfilmed scenes or deleted scenes. But this is not a criticism. When a screenplay is written well enough, in the first instance, it is desirable that most of it will be filmed. This book does that quite well and serves as a good example of how a novelization should work and where they excel. What this novelization does properly is taking the story to the characters and allows us to stand in their shoes. Everyone who meets the Terminator here gets some sort of backstory and grounding. This book, however, is an example of a good no-thrills novelization. It gets into the heads of the characters. You experience some of the confusion, futility and horror that the victims face when confronting the Terminator before their death. The Sarah Connors, Ginger, her boyfriend Matt, and even one of the punks at the beginning of the movie you begin to feel for. The strength and the machine indifference of the Terminator is well incorporated into the narrative. It makes you realise the human element and the loss of life, which we can forget when watching action movies. Word of warning, there could be spoilers. Although I shouldn't really need to say it, and hopefully you are actually watching this after seeing the film. It is worth noting that there are in fact two novelizations written for this film. The first one was written by horror writer Sean Hudson in 1984, a few months before its release in the UK. This book was a by numbers screenplay conversion and offered little in the way of character backgrounds and thoughts. However, it is also rarer of the two and commands some staggering online prices due to its collectability by fans. The cheapest I've seen so far is a £20 copy, which is ex-library. Ugh. And up to the clinically mental prices of Amazon, which is about £150. The first edition of this book was in fact after the movie's release, a few months in fact, I believe. The final manuscript for publication was delayed due to the wait for the sign-off by James Cameron himself. This led to initial poor sales of less than around 50,000 copies. My copy here is a reprint. To capitalise on the release of Terminator 2, they reprinted this Frakes edition in 1991 by Sphere Books, which was then republished again by Warner Books, who saw a continued market in 1993. Perhaps with the continued rental successes of the franchise and the Laserdisc release. We'll have a quick look at the title page, because I'm a sucker for these. I think that probably will confirm it. Yeah, 1991, Sphere Books, and this Warner edition in 1993. Due to the popularity of Terminator 2, the reprint sales of this book were infinitely better. A long-term friend of James Cameron since college, Randall Frakes had access to James Cameron's production notes, which allowed him to flesh out the characters with motivations and thoughts better than what Sean Hudson could do. Bill Wisher, who co-wrote some of the novelization, mentioned he enjoyed writing the characters' backstories and having that freedom to wander around this Terminator world, something that a screenplay writer does not get to do. Bill also has a cameo in the movie as Officer Nick Delaney in Patrol Car 1L19, westbound on Olympic, who reports the hit-and-run felony just before the first car chase scene. The first chapter has a nice build-up where we are treated to the life of the garbage man and the three punks. Sarah Connor is shown being aged 19 and still at college, as well as the part-time job as a waitress. The good writing captures Reese's disorientation of the world of 1984 and states this from the outset. He is portrayed more like a shell-shocked soldier who, like a war veteran, suddenly is removed from the constant state of hypervigilance and war to a normal life. He not surprisingly finds this hard to adjust. This is built up well until his breakdown with Sarah. This was a deleted scene in the movie and written so that he snaps when Sarah Connor tries for a final escape bid before they arrive at the motel. In this book, however, it happens without her trying to run. This book does not offer heaps of deleted scenes like the other novelizations can. Terminator had a relatively straightforward shooting time and kept to the script compared to other movies. There are some tiny added details to flesh out the movie. For example, Reese stealing pizza, children witnessing the murder of the first Sarah Connor, quick little details like how Reese also steals extra ammunition for his shotgun. But the only large removal I noted, and this was perhaps due to cost and time of makeup effects, was the inclusion of the Terminator's knowledge of Sarah Connor's leg injury. Both the murdered Sarah Connors had their legs cut open by the Terminator looking for verification of her leg injury in the form of a metal plate. This injury, of course, is that she was yet to sustain in the movie, and stated as Skynet not having sufficient information of when this injury occurred. Also, there is mention of the Terminator robbing a hardware store for tools and clothing, killing the shop owner, in addition to the gun dealer. Other little details, like the name of the future female soldier accompanying Kyle Reese in the future flashbacks, is revealed to be only 15 years old and named Corporal Pharaoh. And who knew Ginger was an aerobics instructor? Other Terminators are mentioned too, such as the Series 700. Life in the future is well told to include the life of civilians who did not fight and Kyle Reese's thoughts on them. Also mentioned are the plans that the Terminator has should it complete its mission, and even explains why it spent its time burning in the debris of the truck explosion, and how it decides to reactivate. The ending varied slightly from the original deleted scene. In the filmed, deleted scene, we discover the factory is indeed Cyberdyne. In the novelization, it is revealed to be two contract workers working in the unnamed factory. They find the arm and the chip, and they decide to keep it quiet, only to leave the employment of the factory to set up their own company. This book is a good example of the straight-to-page novelization, and it is done well. It is a standard I wish all novelizations received, but unfortunately they do not. Very similar to the film, with no major missing scenes, but good rounded characterization and woven backstories to keep you turning the page. The description of the action is well done, and it's not overthought, with the imagery being quite poetic in a couple of places in its brevity. In conclusion, I would say that, depending on your point of view, this book is the same, but it's a good same, and worth reading as an alternative to watching the movie. This is a novelization done properly. In fact, if you ever find yourself fancying watching the movie again, you would probably find it better, and a good alternative next time you fancy watching. Perhaps pick up the novelization instead, and relive the movie in the mind of the characters. One of the greatest things about reading books. And I don't think you'll be disappointed. If you like this video, please remember to click like and to leave a comment, such as, what is your favourite novelization, and do you prefer the added scenes in books? Thank you and goodbye.